So, this is a short reflection that I wrote exploring the prophetic words of Octavia Butler and how they apply to the times that we're living in today. And I must say, the subject matter is a bit dense and may get heavy, so thanks for going there with me. What dreams are worth dreaming in spite of the darkness of the world? For Lauren Oya Olomina, her dream was to go to space, to enable humanity to become immortal amongst the stars, a world away from the reality she faced here in the United States of America in the year 2032. In this not-so-distant future, climate change has caused severe water scarcity. There is widespread homelessness and poverty, and public infrastructure has fallen apart. And yet, in spite of this, Lauren looks to the stars. She believed that seeding an interplanetary species to ensure survival was a dream so bold, so impossible, and so thankless that only a religion was capable of doing it. That's why, at age 15, she started a religion of her own, WORLDSEED, and their God was change. Because everything you touch, you change. And everything you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. This was a core belief system of WORLDSEED, and the destiny of WORLDSEED was to take root amongst the stars. So we are gathered here today to reimagine the future of this country and to light a path through the darkness, and to build structures of care that ensure we don't find ourselves in Lauren's story. And if you're in this room, I know that you already have your own version of this WORLDSEED destiny, your own dream that is held somewhere deep down inside. So take a moment to think about the dream that you wrote down, or one that you have for yourself. Maybe it's to one day start a school, or to open a foundation, or to invent the cure to cancer. Or maybe you just want to finally spend the day off in bed. No judgment. But whatever it is for you, hold it in your mind, because here today we are going to plant a new seed for the future, our WORLDSEED. So consider this your official invitation to garden with me. And as for me, your humble gardener, my name is Anatola. I am a futurist, creative technologist, artist, founder of my studio, Reimagine Story Lab. And I was first drawn to Octavia's words when one normal day I was taking out the trash, and I looked up, out into the horizon of my Santa Monica home to see red haze and ashes in the sky, as the devastating Los Angeles wildfires blazed over the Pacific Palisades, destroying homes, families, and communities in its midst. And during my evacuation, I stumbled upon a novel written in 1983 by Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. In her story, narrator Lauren Olomina writes in a journal entry, "We had a fire today. People are running for their lives," referring to wildfires that had devastated her fictional California town near the Palisades. An entry written on February 1st, 2025, nearly the same date they struck in the real world. Amidst the destruction, Lauren and her community decide to plant seeds for the new world they were building together. Seeds are a symbol of hope, and even in dark times like Lauren's, like ours, we are all in need of a little more courageous optimism. Now, is it worth planting a dream if you may never live to see it bloom? What is the use of dreaming, of becoming immortal amongst the stars, hardly survive through today on earth. As Octavia Butler writes in Parable of the Talents, the earthly destiny, Mark said, is an airy nothing. The country is bleeding to death in poverty, slavery, chaos, and sin. This is the time for us to work for our salvation, not to divert our attention to fantasy explorations of extrasolar worlds. So I want to pause here for a moment, because why have hope when all you can see is darkness? Today, we live in a time when 80% of Americans don't believe their children's generation will be better off than theirs. And why should we? When war circles us like vultures and morals are decaying, divides are growing wider, and we may just lose our very humanity to machines. Yet, as Palestinian photographer Fadi al-Maghari wrote, as he and his people lost everything, hope is a currency. It's something you protect like food. You feed it carefully, even if it's starving like the rest of you. Because without it, you're done. Hope is how we keep our humanity intact. Now, people say a lot of things about Gen Z. We're called lazy, TikTok obsessed, and say urban slang that I honestly don't even understand. But I have always felt, as a member of Gen Z, that our generation arrived with this mission to create change, with this burning passion for a world that is actually rooted in values, in authenticity and sustainability, a deep desire to dance to the beat of a different drum, even though it often can feel like we're swimming upstream. 2/3 of young Americans today are fearful about the future of democracy in America. Despite these ambitions, we know we may never get to see the change that we want. And as Butler writes, your desires, whether or not you achieve them, will determine who you become. Yet, what we desire is fundamentally different from what we expect. When I ask young people to imagine the future they expect, their answers are often the same. Environmental destruction, government collapse, robots taking over. And this expectation is perpetuated in our stories, as the vast majority of stories that are about the government depict it in a state of catastrophe. The 2024 film, Civil War, imagines an America desensitized to horror, where bombings, gunfire, and mass graves are simply the backdrop to daily survival. The story includes an authoritarian president who dissolved the FBI and claimed a third term, not through democracy, but through the consolidation of power and fear. In Parable of the Talents, Octavia writes of an America actively fighting a violent war with Canada and Alaska, also facing a fascist president who has unlawfully entered his third term as well, a leader who happens to carry the slogan, "Make America Great Again," in a work published in 1989, long before it ever became a real political campaign. These stories, they hold premonitions or warnings, but they also hold a mirror to our own democracy, and they force us to reflect, has our democracy already collapsed? And if it is already broken, how do we pick up the pieces and rebuild? While many revolutions have been won through war, I'm convinced that America doesn't need another battle. It needs a revolution of collective imagination, a reimagining of culture, systems, and infrastructure, and the boldness to dream new dreams. So while all of these stories foreshadow what's possible, they also lay a blueprint for what is needed to change course. The namesake of Parable of the Sower comes from a story in the Bible. It offers a metaphor for the soil of the heart. A seed planted in a hard heart can't grow. A seed planted in a shallow heart can't grow. A seed planted in a distracted heart can't grow. Only a seed planted in an open, receptive, and fertile heart can transform and bear fruit. We often see soil as something dirty, something you don't want to get in your hands, and you certainly don't want to track it into the house. And yet, soil is the very foundation from which everything grows. And our imaginations are exactly the same, often written off as childish, or as fantasy, or impractical. And yet, it is here in our inner minds and this mysterious 8-pound universe within each of us where futures are planted and entire worlds are born. To seed new worlds, we must plant our dreams into fertile imagination. Imagination that is not rooted in fear and scarcity, but in abundance and possibility. It is in our collective imagination where we will harvest the democracy we desire. Now, some of these seeds we plant today, they won't even sprout, unfortunately. Many won't ever break soil. But, just like the parable, I assure you that others will grow into mighty beanstalks of creation. Lauren Oya Alamina nearly gave up believing her dream would ever bloom to see the light of day. In 2032, she was stolen from her community and forced into slavery, beaten, starved, and raped for an entire year. After finally escaping her brutal conditions, she lived for decades thinking she had fully let her people down. It devastated her. But then, in the very last chapter, her community boarded an old rocket ship, one that looked like a tank from 100 years ago. And her community set off to live forever amongst the stars. Earthseed achieved its destiny. It wasn't easy, but the dream eventually found the light. But wait, the rocket that carried them to space was ironically named the Christopher Columbus, a name that Lauren absolutely despised, yet she bit her tongue because some battles simply aren't worth fighting. And this is important because the dreams that come true are hardly ever perfect. But still, while the future might be imperfect, it can be better. We can make progress, and we can transform our dreams into reality. So now, I'm going to ask you to imagine with me by please standing up. Amazing. Now, I ask you to imagine and picture in your mind's eye your dream, your one dream that you have for the future of America. Just the very first thing that comes to mind, or maybe one of the things you wrote down or heard today so far. See it before you, and now hold it in your hand like a seed. Reach out your hand and see it in your hand before you. This is your world seed. So together, we're all going to plant our world seeds into the garden of the future. And when I count to 3, we're going to turn over our hands and then plop them into the earth. Ready? Do you have your dream? Do you have your dream? Do you have your dream? Good. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So let me leave you with this. What dreams are worth dreaming in spite of the darkness of the world? I argue that the answer is shared dreams. Because what is better than joy? Shared joy. And what is better than hope? Shared hope. So our shared futures, those are the futures that are worth fighting for. And yes, the road might get difficult, and we may get lost, but we can come out on the other side. Because here today, we all just planted seeds, world seeds. And the destiny of world seed is to bloom.